Hey, girl. Hey.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hey.
Hola.
How y'all doing?
Hello.
How y'all doing?
Hey, your mama doing?
How y'all doing? It's the Hey Girl Hey podcast on Urban Media. Today, I am your radio chick, Kiki Brown.
And I am the chatter chick, LaShawn Tipton.
And I'm your millennial chick, Jerry Tipton.
We have guests in the studio today.
We have two guests in the building.
Guests.
I love guests.
Guests. We got company, so be good.
Yes.
Sean.
Okay.
We have Ciora Thomas in the building and her fiancé, Aiden James Nevils, in the building today.
Whole name.
Whole
name.
Whole name. This is new. This is a thing. We never had a
all of it.
All of it.
Love it. Yes.
I was waiting on Ciora to give me a middle name, you know.
Listen.
I just gotta be extra.
Ciora is the executive director and the CEO of SisTers Pgh, and the T in Sisters is capitalized. She's also the commissioner and at PA Commission on LGBTQ affairs. And she was actually named another title today.
Today?
I was really nosy. Well, earlier this week, I was really nosy. I was like on her Facebook and stuff. And she was just given another title. We're going to get into that. But Aiden is the project director of Brothers, where the T is capitalized. I like this. Brothers Pgh. And he's the VP at SisTers Pgh with Ciora, and Ciora and Aiden are engaged. They're a couple. They're booed up. Boot up.
I don't know the words. I'll just.
Nobody does no words. It's just boot up.
Boot up.
Anyway, welcome to the show, Ciora and Aiden. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yes.
I will say this. I had posted a question asking for a trans man and woman to be on our show today. And Ciora hit me up. She said, "Hey, sis, what you want? What you need, boo? I got you. What you need?" And let me just tell you, it just gave my heart so much joy, because the reason behind this is the entire world is feeling so many different emotions. And one of the emotions is confusion. Another emotion is fear and ignorance. And we wanted to talk to members of the community to get a better understanding and learn some things, because it's best that we do know the truth, and from those who can best explain it and answer our questions without going off of what he said and they said and she said and Boo said and Boo said and they said and she said and whatever. Everybody. And it makes absolutely no sense.
Right.
So thank you so much, both of you, for joining us today.
Right. Thank you.
Usually we talk about hot topics. This time we just want to dedicate this whole hour to you all.
That works.
We're going to answer some dumb ass questions today. Later on in the second half, we're going to answer some dumb ass questions. Jerry has some questions too. She couldn't wait.
Yeah.
She has some questions.
Yeah, so, I had questions and stuff too, so we all do.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to also add that I said to Ciora, you know, the purpose behind this is education.
Yeah.
And better understanding. And you said you've heard the show before, so you know that the show is respectable. We are about getting the information out, using our platform, and making sure that we are using it wisely. So let's go. Let's get started.
Yeah.
Let's get started. Tell me what SisTers and Brothers Pgh is, first of all, and how it was formed.
Sure. I'll start with SisTers and Aiden. You can talk about Brothers.
Okay.
So I started Sisters Pgh around 2012, 2013. At that time, I was struggling with my relationship with my family, who wasn't understanding and didn't have the education to understand what me transitioning would look like. And the church played a huge role in my family. So that played a bigger part of me transitioning my gender to my authentic self. It was just an issue. So I became homeless as a teenager, and was forced to be involved in sex work, was on drugs for a long time, and just living in the streets with other trans girls like me, who was thrown to the streets. And during those years of just like going through like systems and programs and all these things that weren't really fulfilling who I was as a human, I decided to create this space for ourselves. It was no longer, I didn't have time to like wait for people's promises and wait for them to come through for me. I realized that where I lived in Pittsburgh, where I was born and raised, that I had to create a space that was for us, where we could thrive, where because of the education, the lack of education with our Black moms and our Black dads about their trans kids, allowing them to have a space to continue to thrive in Pittsburgh, while also trying to build those relationships between the kid and the parents, to give education to the parents, like, hey, y'all, just because we're Black don't mean we can't have trans kids. We're actually having trans kids, like that's a real thing. It's not a white thing. This is an actual thing that's happening within our community, and it's an ancestral thing within our Black communities before we were colonized in America. So that's a whole nother conversation, but I created this space to be able to provide resources. Currently, we have a house where we provide housing for our transgender and non-binary communities of Pittsburgh, specifically those of color that find themselves homeless.
Oh, wow.
And we have a community center in Swissville where our trans and non-binary communities can come down to obtain resources like mental health services, rehab services, just a place to hang out, to do your homework. We're going to be having groups going on, focused around mental health and rehab, and just a whole bunch of stuff that is led by us instead of being led by third parties. So yeah, we do so much more, but that's like the core of, what we do. Oh, we run a Pride celebration, People's Pride in Pittsburgh, counteract to the Pittsburgh Pride Fest, which was not inclusive for Black folks, Black and brown folks at all. Yeah. It never has been. It's like a super racist environment. The leadership within the Delta Foundation of Pittsburgh is racist and does not care about Black queer people at all. So it's just like, so we started our own pride. I'm all about like not settling, and especially as a woman, is to create our own spaces. Like I don't need to depend on anybody. I'll just grind as hard as I can to make sure that we get it, and we got it, and we getting what we need to get day by day. And when I met Aiden, we talked about the struggles of like Black trans men existing in this world, and how he can bring them to the table as well, and support the community as well. And I'll let him talk more about that. But sisters, yeah.
Okay. Aiden, is your story similar as to how brothers got started?
It's always so hard to follow after Ciora when she speaks, because like I just sit here like in that too. For me, when I first started my transition, I didn't have resources and I didn't have a space that looked like I belonged in. I was always lumped into like masculine and centered women, or like just a like regular cisgender male. So for me, when I moved to Pittsburgh and met Ciora, I moved to Pittsburgh because I heard that it was like super inclusive, and that was
Right.
Listen,
right.
listen,
That's what I said.
Like, what
I'm-
news was you reading?
Listening
white
to Zay.
news, white news, white news.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead,
I-
keep talking. I'm not gonna stop. Go on, keep talking.
Listen, so I moved to Pittsburgh because they were like, oh, it's super inclusive for like LGBTQIA folks. And I was like, great, I'm a part of that community too. And I got here and found out that was a complete lie. And then I kind of started to realize that when I first started my transition, that the only catalyst or like representation that I saw for Black trans men were on YouTube and on Facebook, where it was this is what this trans man looks like, and you need to look like this.
Yes.
And I fell into that toxicity of being like, I fell into like that toxicity of saying, I need to have a beard. I need to be ultra masculine. In order for me to be a man, I need to be toxic and misogynistic. And it took like 4 years into my transition for me to say, that's not who I am. And like, I literally decided to transition to get myself out of a box and put myself in another box that I didn't belong in.
Mm-hmm.
So when I connected with Ciora, we talked about that. And like, we talked about that through like really authentic and like really like loving conversations where we both wanted to understand each other as Black trans people. And while also realizing how many things that we have in common and the things that we as trans people don't talk about.
Right.
So she was like, hey, this is real. This is a good conversation. And I was like, listen, I feel like we need to bring other Black trans men and trans masculine folk to the space so that they can feel like they're also included, to not be toxic and misogynistic and just trash individuals. So that's how that came about.
You know, Aiden, I think it's interesting that you said Pittsburgh and you heard that it was inclusive, which is so funny.
You said what? Say it again, LaShawn.
Pittsburgh and being inclusive. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, because it's one city that's, you know, it struggles with inclusive, whatever. It struggles with that. So, you know, and so it's a place that struggles with it when, in terms of Black women, in terms of Black men, you know, and so now you're in this thing where you're trans. So you switched over from one to the other, and it's hard both ways.
Yeah.
You know, that's a difficult place to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
when they talked about that, remember that that gender equity report that came out recently?
We just talked about it, yeah.
About that.
I could have.
It was just such a surprise. It was such a surprise that Black women were going through this in Pittsburgh. And then I'm thinking in my own box as like a Black trans woman, like, well, damn, it's a little bit worse for me and where I'm sitting at and trying to navigate and understanding what my cis sisters are going through, and us being able to be in spaces where we can support each other through this. So it's just, yeah.
Why,
Go ahead, Jerry. Sorry.
That's okay. Why do you think it's so hard for people to talk about transgender, bisexuality, lesbian, gay? You know, why is it so hard? Why is it still a taboo topic for people? Why is it still so sensitive for people to talk about it amongst each other? Because it's real life. It's, you know, we're talking about it now, but some people, they just cringe. You know, they just like, I don't like the thought. Like, why is that? You know.
Ciora, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. I don't know if you wanted to take that or not. I'm trying to tread lightly, but like also
do it.
Yeah, just let it all out.
So in my opinion and in my experience, I can only speak to those things, is that in the Black community in particular, because white folk don't have these issues. Let's just keep it a buck. They don't have these issues. When you think about in the Black community, when you think about in the Black community specifically, the Black community already is oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you think about the way that oppression looks, especially in the Black community, it's a who is more oppressed than the other type of thing. It's an oppression Olympics. It's a trauma response. It's a trauma porn thing where no one wants to come to the table and have conversations. On top of that, when you think about the effect that the Black church has had on Black people, about like you know, back in the day when I went to church and my dad's a pastor, there was situations where, you know, folks with queer Black people who loved God would get kicked out of church because they were being authentic while also loving God. And when you think about the effect of that on the Black community, that trickles down to our Black children. So when we grow up as trans and queer people, it's a situation of you're already Black. Yeah. For me, I'm already a woman. And in this space, when I was younger, I'm already oppressed. But now I'm choosing to further ostracize myself and embarrass the family household and embarrass the Black name by coming into this space of, oh, and now you're trans. So not only was I born with 2 or 3 different stripes already on me, I added a 4th by choice, for what most folk would say. Nobody chooses this life. Like, this is not I didn't wake up and say, you know what? I want to be a Black man in America.
And that's a whole nother topic too.
Yes.
Like, you know, born, or did you do the choice? Or were you born this way? That's a whole nother topic. That's something else we can get in. But Ciora, I know you were going to.
I'll let Ciora get it.
You know.
That's a list of the questions that we're going to ask in the second half.
I was her things off. Okay.
Yeah, in the second half. With that, and Ciora, maybe you may have numbers. I don't know, Aiden, you might too. I was looking at this article, and it was from 2017 Essence Magazine, where it talked about numbers in 2016 were the deadliest year on record for transgender individuals. 27 killed, more than half of them with guns, Black trans women, the majority. 2018, 26, at least transgender or gender nonconforming in the US due to fatal violence, majority of whom were Black gender women. Killed by acquaintances, partners, strangers. 2019, the same, 26. In 2020, although we're in May, right now, and you may have different numbers, but these from what hrc.org is reporting, 11 so far. Due to the fact that there are people, I want to assume, and maybe you can confirm, or
yeah. So, go ahead.
Ignorance, fear, I don't know, embarrassment, whatever, and it's just it's a shame. I don't understand it. It's just, what do you say?
So we're actually at like 23 this year.
So
we just
23 now.
Yeah. We just lost another Black trans woman in Philadelphia, and TT, and that made state news, national news, about her death in Philadelphia. And what it was being chopped up to, which I was seeing a lot of comments is, and especially like our folks, like Black folks, just being ignorant around the situation, thinking like we're tricking men into sleeping with us, that we are being malicious in our intent to exist in this world. Well, let me just keep it all the way 100. We don't have to trick them. Like, we can be upfront and honest with cisgender men. There is not a situation where we don't. Where the issue is that man who is trans attracted, and his ego within community. And Black men especially do not want to feel demasculated by anybody. Right. And the effects of that, and I'm just, again, keeping it real, is the effects of Black women and what Black women say to them when they are found out to be trans attracted or bisexual, or it turns into this demonizing of his sexuality and what he prefers. So that keeps them on the down low.
Yeah.
And that keeps them, their mental health is just like not there. So there's a whole bunch of things playing along the way. And when you look at these murders, it's not people, it's like, I don't want to just use these numbers, but a majority of them are targeted because that's a trans person and they don't like trans people and they want to kill us. Another portion is those that actually love us and lay down with us and enjoy our company, but are not comfortable within their own bodies and mind, and because of the oppression around them. So this is what they are, what's happening in tandem with the Black community. And unfortunately, it's not our fault. This is the full of white supremacy and what it did to our Black communities and how it blocked education from our gender fluid Black communities. We were more than male or female before we were brought to America. And what our communities need to do, especially our Black communities, is look up that information. You can look it up, like you could Google our history and see where we come from. And what I'm also noticing is that our Black communities are not rallying and marching for Black trans women who are killed. They are not rallying and marching for us. Like,
not Black women?
Black women, no. Black, like, there are core groups of our allies. Like, we have allies. Don't get me wrong. We have allies that go out there and do the work. But as a majority, like you see the crowd when Ahmaud just got gunned down, how Black people was out there, they had Black lawyers, they had Black everything. But when we are killed, Black people won't even share the post. And the majority, they won't even share the post to their followers to let the world know that we lost another Black body due to violence. And what's messed up about that is it's Black men that's killing us. So it's like, it's this whole cover up thing within our own community, that embarrassment, don't tell what's going on in our house. What happens in our house stays in our house. And that's kind of what's happening with the Black community as far as the murders of Black trans women.
I had a friend that was killed. Well, I don't know if she was killed, a trans woman, Diamond Alicia.
Oh yeah, Alicia. Yeah.
But like, it wasn't like you said, it was like, and it's like, she's a person. She was someone's daughter. She was someone's baby. She was someone's auntie. She was someone's friend. She was someone's sister. She's still a human. And even in 2020, we're still, you all are still fighting for this. What are how do you?
It's our civil rights. It's like our civil rights movement right now. If you look at it in that perspective of where like Black folk had our civil rights movement in America, now we're in a position as trans people, especially and it's so crazy, being Black and being trans and fighting for that liberation and wanting that love from our Black peers and community and needing that to stay alive, because that's why we're dying, because we're not being loved enough by our own communities. And if we were loved enough by our own communities, there would be protection for us as well in numbers. Like, I'm so thankful for the Black women and the Black men who go out there and rally for us and stand next to us and fight for us, like literally fight for us on grassroots levels, in their government offices, wherever they need to, they are doing that. And to those that are not, like, what are we doing for the future of our kids? Because we're not going to only keep having males and females in the Black community. We're going to be having more trans and non-binary Black babies in our Black communities. And are we going to keep throwing them to the streets? Or are we actually going to educate ourselves to keep them in the household and to love them? And people really, Black people, real quick, right after this, Black people really need to be paying attention to Gabriel Human and what she's doing, what her and DeWade is doing with their family, and not judging them, actually learning from them. And for Black people, that was a huge thing for me to see a Black mom, stepmom or not, on a platform saying, support your kids, don't put your kids out in the streets. And to see or to understand how many Black moms that register to my mom. Like, I mean, me and my mom, we're good right now. We have a wonderful relationship. But to so many moms that struggle with how to navigate that. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you good.
Platforms like this, podcasts, radio shows, interviews, do they help? You mentioned DeWade and Gabriel Union, but then you have the hood hero, Lil Boosie, spitting hate, and people are listening to what he's saying, and it's just gassing folks up. So when you come onto platforms like this, does that help? Like, what can we do to continue, can we Does this platform help you?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, any platforms that welcomes, you know, trans bodies and trans people, and I won't talk too much, Aiden, because I want you to talk. But any platform that allows us to be in a space to express, especially Black spaces.
Yeah.
We are in a lot of white spaces, a whole lot of white spaces, because white people like to do a lot of things with us that aren't okay and that are okay. But when it's a black centered space, it's everything, because it allows that education to be put into the community. Rather people, there are always going to be people who be like, but there's also going to be people like who want to evolve in this world and continue to educate themselves in this world. So that's how I feel.
You know, you had said something earlier, and you were saying about civil rights and Black people, and this had civil rights and Black people that had been going on for so long. That's something that will never end. And I think when it comes to our race, there's a whole pie, and white people have 90% of it. And then when we think about we have to split 10% of it, it's a little hard in the mind of some people to think that we have to split some of it with other people. Now, when I say we, I'm not saying me in particular, but I'm saying this in the mind of someone else, that we have to split this. So it becomes a struggle just among our people to get along. Civil rights is something that's going to go on for us daily, whether, you know, you're trans or not, or Black. It's something we're going to, now, getting past the point where we're inclusive people, but it's so hard when it comes to money and funding. I work in this field. I do a little bit of everything, and so I've been to the SOGI classes and everything, because I have to know how to talk to different people. So, you know, and what's the pronoun to use, things like that. So, but when it comes to money and things like that, I noticed that the fight becomes, well, do we have to split the money here in our community with this people? So it becomes a big fight. A struggle.
I wanted to
There's need, period.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to, because it's been like,
We have 2 minutes.
Been on my brain. Okay. I wanted to just respond to that quickly. Like, within the Black community and with being trans, we're still Black. Like I am a Black trans man. I am Black first.
Yes.
I walk around this world every day Black.
Yeah.
I love being Black. But in situations like this, when we are facing just like genocide by Black men harming and killing Black trans women, I'm sitting here like, yo, I'm trans first, because my trans body, my fiance's trans body is is literally on the line every single day that she walks out of that house. Every single day. So it's like, we had a conversation about that, how it's like, we always say like, okay, I'm Black first, I'm Black first, I'm Black first. But yo, it's hard. It's so hard to say, yes, I'm Black first, when Black people aren't saying y'all are Black first. Does that make sense? Like they're not saying y'all Black first. Like, it's like we can create our own funnels of money and resources and funds. SisTers Pgh is a testament that we can create our own funds. We don't need the funds. We need the support and the love. We need people to see us as Black first, because the Black experience is so wide. And transness is a part of the Black experience, but often we are pushed out of being Black and forced into going into white spaces to get resources, or to get love, or to get a $25 gift card for speaking at a panel for 2 hours, when we would talk to Black people for free. If that meant us coming together and loving one another. That's all I've got.
It's definitely a hard thing. I've been to so many things, and I've listened to both sides. And I'm just trying to figure, like, how do we come together? Because I'm hearing this side saying we, us, and this side, and we all look alike, but we're all saying we and us against them in the same room. But we all look the same. You know, I hear this side say, why haven't you come out to help us with this?
Mhm.
But we're all the same color, and then there's white people inside of that room looking like,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
really? You all need to get this
Literally.
together.
Literally.
Because it's a struggle between our race. It's something, this is something, it's not new to us, but it is new because people weren't out. People didn't change the way they do now. I mean, not to be funny, but I looked at the Maury show one time, and they did the show where they had, the guys, transgenders, and they were dressed up, and people were in the audience. They would go, "More," was a big joke.
So
That's a girl. That's a girl.
That same type of situation right there. That same situation right there is like systemic transphobia. It's like it is really actively training people to be transphobic.
Right.
And it's like, and that's exactly what it's doing. Jerry Springer is the same damn thing. Like, it's like, it humiliates our community.
Yeah.
Jerry, he offers us, like, I got called by the Jerry show 100 times back in the day. They offer you a couple dollars, they give you a hotel room, give you some sick. I never went, but but that's what they're offering you, and they just completely demean our community for a laugh.
But they do that to black. They do that to black, trans, everybody. And we look at that and we think it's a joke. We think everything is a joke. When we're on TV, we think it's a joke.
Yeah.
So when we would see those shows, I thought you would think if you looked at the Maury show that only transgenders are only there to model and look like models. That's what all of them look like.
And imagine the hate. Like, I hated myself because of those kind of shows.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of trans people hated ourselves because of those kind of shows.
Mm-hmm.
We were not like understanding how to identify as trans people because of that kind of stuff. Our parents were like loving that stuff, and we were watching them love that stuff. So it was just like really hard to deal with when and we're kids, especially like when we're kids. When we're adults, like we want to live our lives until we can't live no more. But when we kids, that is the most impressionable time for a child. It's a trans child, and growing up with cisgender siblings at the same time. And I was the oldest, so I was supposed to uphold that older son masculinity, help mom take care of my brothers, and do that whole shindig. And that just wasn't like me. So just being a kid, I like, I'll fight for our black trans kids so hard, because they deserve to live. They deserve to be loved. And we always got to keep that in mind, always.
I'm glad you brought, we're going to end it on that because we have to take a break. We're going to answer not Jerry's questions. So in addition to Jerry's questions, we're going to answer some dumbass questions. Jerry's questions are not dumbass questions.
Okay.
I didn't want her to think that I was saying that she asked some dumbass questions, because you don't, baby. You don't. Okay. So, we're here with Ciora Thomas and her fiance, Aiden James Nevils. This is the Hey Girl, Hey podcast on Urban Media Today. Hang tight.